On behalf of Northwest Universal Design Council and Age-Friendly Seattle, I'd like to welcome you to today's event. We appreciate you making it out here. A little bit about Northwest Universal Design. Northwest Universal Design Council's mission is to promote universal design through education and engagement. Universal design is not a program, and it is not a list of design guidelines or regulations. It is a set of principles that help make built and social environments accessible to every person, regardless of age or ability. For more information, we would love it if you visited our website, environmentsforall.org.
So I'm Gerry Cherney, and I'm the OT health and medical professional up here to kind of explain a little bit what it is that occupational therapists do with universal design, modifying and adapting home living environments to be able to stay safe and independent in your home. Okay, so basically, first, for those of you that aren't familiar with occupational therapy, kind of explain it to you a little bit. Most people don't know what OT is until you either have to see an occupational therapist yourself, or a family or loved one, or someone that you're caring for needs OT. Occupational therapy is a part of physical and rehab medicine, works in part with physical therapy, hand-in-hand speech therapy, usually through a doctor's referral. I started Indeboom to be able to go out into the community not needing a doctor's prescription or referral, to be able to go out primarily for folks that want to age in their homes, stay in their place before there's any health or medical condition or reason for getting out there. So I primarily look at activities of daily living. That's primarily dressing, bathing, toileting, pretty much everything when you get up until you go to bed during the day. That's what we call your occupation. So I remember when I was a student over at Virginia Mason, intern, fellow that was there after a heart attack, had some surgery on his open heart surgery. He said, "Son, I'm retired, so I don't have an occupation, so you don't need to do anything." So it was a great learning experience to explain to him, "Well, sir, how are you going to get dressed? Have you been able to do that since you just got out of surgery yesterday?" "No, I have the nurses and the nursing assistants helping." So that's kind of where basics of occupational therapy. And basically going out into the home and going from the hospital to the home is completely different. So we kind of look at the basics. Usually when I'm seeing someone in their home, they're either there safely and independently or not. So basically, I like to call this the broken cycle at home. So, for example, you have an unsafe living situation. So someone is in their home and they've been there usually for a longer period of time. What I like to explain to people is, as you age, your bodies and your minds change, but your home is static. It stays the same. So we're dynamic. Getting up and getting here was a lot of dynamic movements that you can imagine. Everyone had a different experience. If you had a bone-on-bone knee or hip, or you had a stroke and only one side of your body was functioning, think about how you would get up differently having one of those conditions than you are doing right now. So you have usually home environments that are unsafe. So then you're struggling with those ADLs, activities of daily living, usually kind of managing and compensating and getting by. But usually at some point, the statistics range, usually 70 and older is usually when people have falls. Doesn't have to be in that age group, but usually statistically it's for our aging adults in the 70 and older category. And So if you have a fall, sometimes, more than not, if you have osteoporosis as a diagnosis, or osteopenia, which is a precursor to osteoporosis, there's a good chance that you're going to break something in your musculoskeletal system. For example, I was just visiting my mom and dad over the last week and a half back east, and we went to go look at a haunted house the day before, just to kind of get out. And it was dark. It was after dinner. My mom has diabetic neuropathy in her feet, which is decreased sensation or feeling. And she went to go step up onto the curb, didn't catch the curb, or caught the curb with her foot and went right down. I am really amazed that she did not break anything. Part of that is she doesn't have osteoporosis. So I have some clients or patients that tell me, well, Gerry, I fall, but when I fall, I don't break anything, so I'm okay. And usually this is a referral from their children, their sons or daughters, or son or daughter-in-laws. And so you have, sooner or later, you're going to have someone with a fall occurs that you have a broken bone. And then from there on, you're going to have surgical intervention to repair or replace that fractured, injured limb. So then you're going to most likely going to go to physical rehab. There's not many people in that age group that go directly home, no matter how safe your home environment is. I was telling Paul up here, sometimes we'll have clients that I see that should have went to rehab, but they went what's called AMA, against medical advice. So you can leave unless you are a danger to yourself or the community. You can discharge yourself from the hospital to go home. But with the physical rehab, usually that's about anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. And depending upon how you're advancing with insurance, you're going to be getting discharged home. And so that's usually where I'm seeing folks with my home health profession, is when they get home, along with physical therapy usually, and nursing to look at any wounds from the surgery. So what happens is we get back to this unsafe living situation, and we're looking at, why did you fall? And so basically, when we go to the home, into the home, occupational therapy, we do a home needs assessment. So I look at, basically I tell people, if you could please, or ask people, can you show me how you're able to get up out of bed and walk me through your morning. And usually there's a few indicators going on. One of the things that I don't have up here is medications. If you're on 5 or more medications, you're going to have some side effects with those medications. So some of the medication side effects could be dizziness, lightheadedness, high blood pressure changes going from, blood pressure changes going from sitting to standing. So I'm looking at what's going on in the home and make that assessment of what my recommendations are in a proposal format. And so usually in that format, I will then ask them, do you have someone in the building industry, or do you have someone that's looking out for a different type of home if this one is not suitable? I would probably say 3/4 of the people I see are living in 2-story homes, which makes the second story inaccessible if there is a fractured bone, or if there's been a stroke or a neurodegenerative illness such as multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease, which upon diagnosis slowly progresses, versus someone that has had a fracture. Once that heals up in roughly 9 to 12 weeks, if you're relatively healthy before that and you just kind of had a bad day and you fractured yourself, someone in our age group, you might be able to get back and manage in your homes, but most people cannot. So I will recommend, usually, if it's something that is needed, I'm going to skip over here. So basically, going into the home, and some of the improvements are small that can be done, grab bars that I can have a handyman come out depending upon the person's finances, or if there are major things that need to be done, such as removing walls or removing showers to make them accessible, I will get a professional building industry such as Paul here out and usually meet me in the home, and I could kind of explain over the phone and say, hey, this is what's going on, and would you be interested in coming to meet me out there? And then basically have them get up and show what's going on in terms of the impairments. So basically what I do is I go in, I don't need to have a diagnosis if you want to be proactive. So sometimes I'll probably, maybe a quarter of the clients that I see are being proactive, and they just want to have an OT to kind of come out, and they're like, we just bought this home and we want to make it safe and independent for my wife or my spouse or whoever to stay there as long as we can. So go out and assess the barriers to the independence, which again usually is due to the home not fitting the person and their aging needs. And then basically helping the clients plan for the future to make sure you could stay there as long as possible.
All right. So I'm Paul Kocharhook. I'm the owner of Pathway Design and Construction. And I started Pathway, let's see, this is our 10-year anniversary this year. So I started Pathway 10 years ago, and with the intent of creating healthier spaces, safer spaces for the remodel projects that we were doing. So we're strictly a remodel contractor, and we want to try to leave our clients with a healthier space and safer space than when we first started in their homes. So this year in June, my wife and I bought a home with the intent of not having to do a remodel on the project. And it was a home that we could just move into. And once we got into it, I realized this is a basement space, and I realized what was going to be the kids' bathroom in the basement had a leak under the sink. And I looked under the sink, and I was like, well, we should tear our sink out. And then I looked at it, I'm like, you know what, I don't really like how this space is laying out. And we now have the opportunity to start implementing some universal design concepts that we've been playing with on homeowners projects throughout the years. And it's hard to get projects that photograph really well. So this is going to be a project that I can now talk to people about. So what we have in this case is the idea that I'm going with this is, how do we approach this remodel so that if anything were to ever happen to anybody in my family, or so anybody in my immediate family, my wife and 2 kids, or myself, or parents, or somebody who may be coming to visit us, how can they use this space better than any of the other spaces within the home? So in this case, this is a wall-mounted toilet that we did here, and this is going to allow me to kind of raise and lower the toilet to the specifications that we might need. And so initially I've set it at what we call comfort height, so it can be accessible to my kids as well as to somebody in a wheelchair as well, should they want to come and visit. Here we put blocking in the wall. This is not going to be needed at this point in time, but it's there for future should we ever need to put grab bars next to the toilet. So the idea with this is, we're doing a remodel on the home. Let's take care of the stuff in the walls that we don't need right now, but potentially could need in the future. So, to put this in, it's a few dollars worth of material and maybe 30 minutes worth of time to get it in there. Whereas if we had to do it in the future, we're tearing the wall completely out. It's thousands of dollars worth instead of just a few hundred maybe. Let's see here. We're going to actually put a bidet seat in for my kids. So they're going to have the nicest bathroom in the house, which I'm a little bit jealous of. Let's see, what else are we doing here? So down here, we're putting in a wall-hung vanity as well. And what this is, so right here is our shower, and there'll be we're going to put a glass panel in that will separate the shower from the rest of the bathroom space. But should we ever need to use this room as a wet room, the vanity is going to be up and off the floor, so easy cleanability should it ever be needed. We've also tiled the walls and put waterproofing on them as well. So really you could go and hose down the room should you ever have to. So again, thinking of foresight down the line should it ever be needed. What's going to be needed to clean the space is going to already be there. Let's see. So one of the other aspects with remodeling, so when I think about aging in place or just the health of the home in general, we don't necessarily know, if we think aging, we don't necessarily know what the complications might be for somebody down the line as far as what our bodies are continually changing as we're continuing to take in toxins. And what we may react to now could be different 20 years down the line as we've kind of, as the cup has kind of filled up with the toxins we've taken into our body, we may start overflowing at some point, if that makes any sense. So what we've done here is I put in wool bats. So this is actually natural wool, so it's from a sheep. The toxicity is non-existent with the material. It actually removes VOCs from the air, so it helps clean the air of the home just by being in the wall. Let's see, I'm going to go back. So here with the shower, we're putting in a zero threshold shower. So this will be a shower that if we ever needed to have somebody with a wheelchair roll into, they can. About 5 years ago, I realized how important this was. I hurt my back. I could not get up and down our stairs, and it was actually painful for me to step up and over the threshold to get into the shower. And this just makes a lot of sense. We can build the shower in a way that you virtually just walk in as if you're walking into a room. Let's see, so here again, behind this wall here, we put blocking in should grab bars ever be needed. This is an air barrier, this Intello air barrier. So the idea with this is helping to keep air movement minimally coming into the space, so it's more on an energy efficiency level. Again, I'm just trying to take advantage of what we have the opportunity to do while we have the walls open. Lighting in the bathroom is really important as well, especially as we age. We'll notice different sensitivities to different types of light. So we've actually, everything will be on a dimmer switch. We're going to have lights in the vanity or in the medicine cabinets. They'll be in there as well, and then we're going to have can lights that'll go in above each of the mirrors, which we can dim and kind of change around as we need to. Let's see. So this is a project that was actually done for a paraplegic, and it was really interesting for me when I actually met him at his home and talked to him about the project that he did here. Not every person has the same needs as they go through progression. So in his case, he has a strong left side. So we're able to put a grab bar on the left side of the toilet. Somebody may, in his similar situation, may have a strong right side, so we may have to do something different with grab bars. But in his case, it works. As far as height off the floor as well, so as I talked about with our toilet, we put blocking in kind of a range. It's an assumption on my part whether that blocking, I'm hoping that it works for us in the future, but we can't build everything to every specification. So we do the best that we can within the space. So in this case, his grab bars are probably a little bit lower than normal because that works for him and it helps him get off and on the toilet. Let's see. So this was a home that he purchased that he was able to modify to make work for him. So he was able to put in a little ramp here to get up and down, but also a bigger ramp that went around. So it's interesting, again, talking to him about thinking about visitability. So not necessarily maybe us, but our friends, again, who are coming to visit. His dad has a home, and he is able to visit, but he is not able to stay in the home. So should he ever need to live there, he can't get into any of the bedrooms. So he can get into the house and into the bathroom, but he needs to go home if he wants to sleep and be able to function again. So that's kind of the difference between habitability and visitability of our homes and how we want to look at them. His sink, this is, he has a wife and 2 kids. This is everybody's bathroom. So the nice thing is this bathroom is functional enough that everybody in the family can use the space. And this sink is a roll-in underneath, so he's able to roll right up to the shower. You'll see down here, it was 0 threshold, so he's able to roll in and out of the shower as needed. And then transition points in and out of the bathroom. So he's able to roll up and over the threshold that's here. It's really minimal. And there's another shot of the shower. So this shower head, these are great. I put them in all of our showers, whether we're doing aging in place or not. We want to, just for even cleanability, keeping a bathroom clean, they're nice to be able to help wash off the walls as opposed to just having a standalone shower head. And so his wife uses these top couple baskets, and he uses the bottom basket here for all of his stuff. And then the curtain goes around and is able to keep the water out from the rest of the bathroom. So, one of the hardest questions that I get answered when I'm talking to homeowners about the how to make their bathroom usable for them is, well, I don't want it to look industrial. How do I make it look pretty? And within a budget. Those are 2 of the hardest things, because a lot of what we do is bathrooms can get really expensive. And how do we make those more budget friendly? And there's some great products on the market now where these are prefabricated units. You can put benches in them if we need to put a bench in. All of the walls for these units, they come with, so it's a fiberglass unit, and it comes kind of stamped to look like tile, but they all come with a plywood backing in them, so that allows us to go ahead and mount grab bars. So it eliminates the having to put backing in the wall, which I was kind of showing you in our bathroom, my bathroom that we're remodeling currently. So this just it's like a one-day bathroom or one-day shower, essentially, is what these are. We pull the existing shower out and drop these showers in. So it's a great alternative to a full bathroom remodel if we're just trying to gain accessibility, maybe get rid of a bathtub and drop in a shower, or get rid of a threshold in a shower. In this case, too, you also see this is a linear drain here. So linear drain helps keep the water from getting into, say, the bathroom space, so it covers the entire opening of the shower. And then we also have walk-in tubs, which are great. We've done several of these over the years, and our homeowners who have done them absolutely love them. So you can, if you wanted to shower in them as well, they can be used as a shower. There's just not a lot of room to do that, but they are a great way to be able just to soak and not have to worry about falling while you're bathing. Yeah, these are just some water containment things. Again, shower curtains work great, especially when you're dealing with walkers or wheelchairs, because you can easily move them in and out of the way of gaining access to the spaces. Yeah, a few more accessories. And this was another bathroom that we did. This was a tiny bathroom in Seattle. We did not have a lot of space to work with. They had when we originally walked in, they had a wall-hung sink and a floor-mounted toilet and a bathtub. And the idea was, how do we create this space so that the homeowners can use the bathroom as they continue to want to live in the home. Here you'll see this is actually the entrance. This is the door that entered into the bathroom. So we had minimal space here, but we created this as a shower, and we ended up doing a walk-in shower here. The one thing I like about this bathroom is that, you know, we actually did it is a pretty bathroom. It turned out really nice. So we didn't have to sacrifice anything for the homeowners to make it look like a nice space and an updated space for them. You know, to get a wheelchair in here is probably pretty hard in this bathroom, but in this case we were trying to stay within the footprint of the space that we currently had, and they didn't have any mobility issues at that time.
I hope you realize how great this is to have. This is like a blind man describing the elephant, right? I mean, we've got three totally different perspectives on this issue, which I think is really important to look at. My perspective is to look at it as from a realtor's perspective. What our job is to help people find homes that fit their needs and help people sell their homes to people that are looking for their homes. In accessibility, that's really difficult to do, and I'll kind of go into an example of why that is. But I want to make a really important differentiation before we even get started. There are two different things we're talking about. One is going to be accessibility, which really deals with Gerry's expertise of being able to evaluate an individual's needs and accommodate those needs. One of the taglines we like to use in the business that I started 14 years ago is that disability is simply the failure of an environment to adapt to one person's needs. That's what makes them disabled. Gerry's job is to undisable them, to make the environment fit for them, and in some cases make them fit the environment. What I'm going to be talking about is more universal design, and what Paul has been kind of addressing is making homes that don't have barriers in them to begin with, so we don't have to adapt them later. It's really difficult to find homes that fit that need for a couple of reasons. One is they don't make a lot of them. We're still making the same crappy homes that we made 100 years ago. And builders haven't figured that out yet, that there is a demographic out there that's going to be demanding something different. The silver tsunami aside, I mean, even if you look at those turning 65, 10,000 a day, 85 million of us, and living longer, the forecast is, can you hear me okay?
It's echoing. Yeah. You're too far away from it.
Okay. Okay, I'll use that. No, I forgot where I was. Senior moment there.
Silver tsunami.
Silver tsunami, yeah. There's a bunch of us turning 65, and we're living longer. So what that means is, even though the disabilities are down statistically, people are living a longer time with disabilities. And there's a whole range of things that are exasperating that, like chronic obesity, leads to a lot of failures. The other thing is, if you look at just the numbers of disabilities, according to the 2010 census, there's 59 million some people with some type of a disability. And if you look at that number, that means that, I used to use the example, if McDonald's shows an ad with a little boy in a wheelchair in there, they're not advertising to that little boy in the wheelchair. They're advertising to that little boy's mom, dad, aunt, uncle, brothers, sisters. So for every one of those people, there's 3 to 5 people minimum that are affected by that disability as well. That's roughly, just the disability number is roughly 20% of the population. So if you look in those numbers, there's a lot of people looking for these types of houses. A lot of people don't need them right now, and that's where the problem is. They're buying the same houses we built 100 years ago because they fit their needs right now. And it's cheaper for builders to do that. But by planning ahead, just like Paul said, doing something that adds less than 1% of the overall cost to plan in some of these aging in place things is a phenomenal thing. Even in Seattle, where ramblers are not likely to become overwhelming because the cost of land's too high, it's too expensive to build houses that go out rather than up. But you can plan for things. A very good friend of mine, who many of you may know, Emery Baldwin, built his house in the Greenwood area and won several AIA awards on that thing because it is typical, it looks like a typical Greenwood house. It's 3 stories, has a level entry from the street, has a level entry from the alley, and through the center of the house, then it has 5-foot stacking closets. So that at some point in time, if they needed to get from top floor to bottom floor, all they have to do is take the floor and the ceilings out of the closet, and the elevator shaft is already built in. If you look at the cost of changing that, it's phenomenal. So we want to be able to do that. Universal design, that's why that's important. Part of the problem with realtors is that, the other part of the problem, is that they don't like to advertise accessibility because this is the mental image they have. If you talk about, and often hear it called the handicapped house, they don't want that. It's cold, it's sterile, it's absolutely functional, and that's where Gerry comes in. You know, these are things that are adapted to an individual's needs. What I'm talking about is trying to come up with things that meet a greater need. These are completely functional too, except maybe for that one for the church. It looks like it could be a little unfunctional. But they accomplish what they're designed to do, get people in and out of the house where there's steps. We don't have to make them look like that. Universal design is different in that what it's trying to do is to make a house usable by the greatest number of people to the greatest extent possible. So from a real estate perspective again, and if you look at those demographics, that should make a house not designed for a minority of people, but designed to accommodate anybody at some point in time. An important thing about those demographics at 59 million people with a disability, that makes disability the single largest minority group in the country. And it is extremely non-discriminatory, and it's the only minority group that you can become a member of in a split second. So I often hear people when we're talking about Wounded Warrior Project or homes for our troops, it's nice that they're making homes for those people. Well, those people is us. Now, any one of us can become a member of that, so we need to accommodate that. With universal design, get the laser out here. We have a range of accessibility to usability, making it easier to use. And then a whole range of people. You have people with disabilities, people with special needs. Height is a big one. My wife is 5 foot, and there's a lot of things in the upper cupboard she can't get to, so that makes her disabled if I put something in the top shelf. Elderly people and disabled people. We need to accommodate the greatest number of those people. There's different ways of accomplishing the same thing. Here's some examples of some thought giving to accomplishing the same thing as that big wooden ramp is by landscaping. Ideally, if we could, oh, there we go. If we've got level grade, you know, we just try to accommodate making a level entry into the house, but obviously you can't always do that. But by landscaping, you can make things that are even a wood ramp can become really attractive and beneficial for finding and reselling that house. It can also be artistic. I love these things. I collect pictures of these, of a great way in public to accommodate the same thing. Here we have a big rise where we've got steps that obviously for most people is going to be a task to do. For somebody that is limited in mobility, even harder, but it can be extremely attractive. You know, if you incorporate that in, it actually becomes part of the environment that makes it usable. Bathrooms are the same way. I mean, bathrooms and kitchens sell a lot of houses. We can make it sterile, or we can build a house that has some of these features included in them. For example, the thresholdless showers. And this is ridiculous, but one of the things that we found is if you call this a roll-in shower, nobody wants it. But if you market it as a European shower, people like it. So this is a European shower. But it accomplishes the same things. One of the things I want to point out on this too that is really great, and Paul's idea, you know, every house when you're building it should have backing behind the walls so that if the time comes that you do need to put grab handles in there, they've got a solid surface to mount to. And I'm adamantly opposed to people putting towel bars in the bathroom too, because towel bars are inevitably used as grab bars, and they are not grab bars. So you're going to end up getting hurt. You can use grab bars with backing as a towel bar, great. And it's something that's strong enough. In fact, a lot of the manufacturers now are looking at the demographics and realizing where the future is. So if you look at Kitchen and Bath Design News, they're coming out with new universal design features all the time. There's people that make accessories for toilet roll holder, that's a grab bar, grab bars in the shower, grab bars in a corner that becomes a soap shelf, making them functional things that accomplish multiple purposes. Here's a great example of that too. If you look at, you know, grab bars, thinking outside the box. Here's a company, actually I think this is a Moen ad, but they actually designed a grab bar into the tile work of the shower. So it's extremely attractive and functional. Same thing here. And this is important too, I think, that to point out, one of the things that makes a big difference is if you have contrasting surfaces, it makes it easier for people to see changes, either changes in height or depth perception. So those are things that are extremely attractive, but also are very functional. I also want to differentiate between, I often hear it's ADA compliant. ADA has absolutely nothing to do with residential construction. ADA is a public space criteria. And it's a set of instructions. It's specific of how you have to do something. How many people have ever watched on the Cooking Channel, I think, or Food Network or whatever, there's a show called Chopped? How many people have ever seen it? It's a great example of this because what they do is rather than bringing ingredients out and then giving these, they'll have like 3 or 4 chefs a menu to make something out of those. They bring 3 or 4 ingredients out and they say, we want a main course. Use your imagination and come up with the best main course meal you can do out of these 3 ingredients. And believe me, some of those ingredients are pretty bizarre, but they do it. It's the same thing with universal design. What we're doing is challenging people to come up with a different way of thinking about doing the same thing. So those are great examples. Here's another one. If you're in a wheelchair, typical cabinet toe kicks, which is that area underneath the cabinet, don't work. They're usually 6 inches high. And I don't know what their purpose is, other than to raise the cabinet up off the floor. There's nothing under there but dust bunnies. So if you have a higher toe kick, a person in a chair can actually get their toes under the cabinet and get closer. But now you've got this big, big expanse for a toe kick. So what do you do with that space? Well, putting drawers down there is phenomenal. I mean, I look at like the stuff that you use at Thanksgiving and you don't use the rest of the year, or table or placemats or anything else. it's a great place to put them. And it makes that space, rather than just wasted space, usable space. Here's another thing. Make it a pull-out for a step. Now you're accommodating this poor person who is disabled because she isn't tall enough to reach the bathroom sink. So this addresses her disability. And that would address my wife's disability in getting things out of the top shelf of the kitchen. The same thing with the kitchen sink. The kitchen sink doesn't have to look any different. You can accomplish the same thing by making the toe kicks either removable or foldable, and the doors folding in as well. So now you can have a roll under sink, and when it's not needed, it looks like every other sink. So different ways of accomplishing the same thing. Adaptable work surfaces is another thing. These actually become extremely functional. Having countertops that pull out, so if you need to get under it, or if you're making cookies and your kids need surfaces, it can be lower than the rest of the cabinet. Pull-out surfaces as well. This not only becomes a separate countertop for somebody, but it can be moved to a different room. This is also something, again, that Emery Baldwin did in his bathroom, where he had a roll under vanity, but it has a full drawer space in it. If at some point in time he needs to actually roll under that, you can pull the vanity, the drawers, and the shelving out, and now it's completely roll underable. But it's a different way of accomplishing the same thing. Here's another idea I think is great, is building in a slide-out table. I mean, if you've got company over for the Super Bowl party or something, here you've got a tabletop that's actually built in, you can just pull out. But again, these are the chopped versions of accomplishing the same thing. How can you think of a different way of doing it? You can also, on shelving, there's a lot of things that you can do for shelving. This is something that is being marketed now, which is phenomenal, is pull-down shelving. And you can actually see here is a different height on the countertop too, with a corner that can accommodate a wheelchair. But it's completely transparent when you look at this kitchen. Counter height appliances are coming out more and more often now. You can have microwaves, warming drawers, and here's even freezer and refrigerator doors that can be pulled out. This can be great, and these can be independent. They can be in different places. They don't have to be with each other. So you can have, drinks for the kids in one place and vegetables in another, but just a different way of doing it. This, I think, is one of my favorite examples of thinking outside the box. We all know the old handrail that you need to go down the stairs, but here's a different way of thinking of the same thing. If you're going up the stairs, it gives you basically a handhold at each step to pull yourself up. Another way of thinking of it is if you can't see your feet, it actually mimics what your feet are doing. So visually you can see if there's a step down, and it accommodates that. If you're carrying packages, it gives you a place to rest a package. But again, it's just the old common handrail, thought in a different way. Sustainability is a really important thing. We're building lots of green houses right now that are junk if something happens to you. They're green, but they're not accessible or adaptable. They're the same old house. Universal design, in fact, one of our members, Scott Starr, is an architect, got the universal design included in the Evergreen standards, which is Washington state standards that they use for public housing. Got universal design included in the green section as a points basis. They need to get so many points on their design. So building universal design is into that is an important thing. Just like Paul mentioned, if you haven't built that, cost efficient over time, if you haven't built those backing into the wall, and now you need grab bars, you need to tear open the wall and build the backing, or you need to change the whole bathroom around, it becomes really ungreen. You've got to waste all those materials in time that you did building those things. So we need to think about it differently. This is a project and a real short video that I want to show you that I would love to get done around here sometime. It's Home Today, Home Tomorrow. And all these nonprofits and for-profit companies and public agencies came together to design a contest of building a house that met all these criteria. And I'll point out this link. You took that link because what they did is solicited offers from all these different architects to come up with different ways of doing it. And they picked number 1, 2, and 3. But there was tons of ideas in there that were great that maybe didn't get included in the winning design. And they made a toolkit out of it for builders and architects. But real quickly, this is the...
Many Americans want to stay in their home as they age, but their home can't accommodate them. Their home can't accommodate their changing needs as they grow older.
So if you are going to be in your home, what can we do to make that home work for you? That's the real challenge here. And so we decided to have this design competition.
The Home Today, Home Tomorrow Design Challenge, in partnership with ARP, the ARP Foundation, Home Matters, Wells Fargo, Home Depot, and media partners Dwell and ARP Bulletin, all came together to challenge architects, designers from across the country to rethink how a home in Memphis could live and grow with a family as a family evolves through life. This design challenge, it's taking an existing home, looking at the designs that were submitted, coming up with a first, second, third place winner, and then building out the winning submission into this home.
We went across the entire country to try to find a house that really represents a lot of America. And so when we're thinking about this, how can this be this platform to really try to understand how we can improve the housing that we're building across the country? Let's get to it.
All right, rock and roll.
All right.
We have such an outstanding set of judges coming from all different backgrounds, from aging in place to superstar architects, all coming and thinking about ways we'll look at this house in the design submission. This is a house that was gratefully donated by Wells Fargo. It's in need of work, and it's really a blank slate. It's a perfect house for what we're trying to get out of this design challenge.
The Wells Fargo Housing Foundation is really pleased to be a part of this initiative. By donating this house, it really does speak to our mission of supporting affordable, sustainable home ownership.
Some of the criteria that we asked designers to think about was adaptability, affordability, replicability, and most importantly is this universally designed home.
Universal design is access really for everyone, not just someone with a disability or in a wheelchair. It's for kids, it's for small people, it's for old people, it's for those in between.
What we'd like to see is at least one of the entries be converted to a step-free entrance so that if you can't climb stairs for some reason, if you've got a knee problem, if grandma's visiting for Thanksgiving, she'll have a way to get in.
I can't even fit my shoulders in here, look at this. Look at this. What we're looking to do is sort of turn it on its head, try to make it a little bit more open.
Just blow out that wall.
A lot of walls need to come down to really create a more vibrant social area in the house.
I think what's really important is integrating the outside space, trying to open it up and extend the size of the home and the energy of the home.
What they have to do is actually capturing the needs and necessities for a society that is aging, but also makes it beautiful and fun and functional and aesthetically pleasing.
I'm super excited to see the designs.
So as you're all looking through the submissions today, again, I want to encourage you to think of the elements that are needed in the house as we talk about growing in place for America.
I never thought I'd see so many different ways to organize a single-family house. There were very unique ways of entering a home.
Flexible wall systems that could be reconfigured.
It's more functional and more beautiful.
Enhanced indoor-outdoor living.
Community gardens.
We're using the number 10 up
The judges debated, deliberated, and thinking through what is our winning submission.
So one thing I enjoy is a good, healthy debate. And so we had some of that over the last 2 days.
If you opened up all that into, like, what would you do with that?
Well, and then the step between the current patio and the front doors.
I like many different parts of many different submissions, so it will be a challenge to pick a winner.
It shouldn't look any different than any other house in the neighborhood because of the universal design features.
We have a first place winner that's outstanding, that really speaks to what the spirit of the competition was about.
The organization between the various. What I really like about the winner is it has different zones. First you have the public zone with the kitchen, the semi-public one with the kind of living area, and the private one with the bathroom and bedrooms.
One of the flexible items that they included was with respect to one of the bedrooms, where it actually opens up to the rest of the public part of the house, or can be closed off. So that flexibility to add a bedroom, subtract the bedroom, have this space serve different functions over time.
Another thing that I liked was the incorporation of the inside and outside, so that with these windows, you can give people natural light, you can kind of get people into their community a little bit. So I think that's a really unique and interesting way to do that.
We have a second and third place winner who will also be breaking molds and innovative design elements.
We're also going to take all of the good elements we find and put them into a toolkit that we can then share with people around the country, so you can take some of these designs and put them into your own house. The ability of these designs to really help people be able to move money from one budget line item to another. No matter how big your family pie is, it becomes bigger if you're spending less on housing.
So we'll hand the keys to a lucky family, because this house is going to be awesome. In the fall of 2016, we're going to select a veteran family who will get to enjoy the next stages of their life in a home that will grow with them.
In the Memphis area, there's over 70,000 veterans. That's a huge market. We need to pay attention to these markets and the special needs that they have for their homes.
The Home Depot Foundation has been really excited to join this initiative. We want to make sure that we're able to give back to the veteran who has given so much for his or her country and truly make this a home for them.
I think it's a culmination of a lot of hard work from people in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors working together to move the industry to look at things in a new way with smart design that anyone would be proud to live in.
We're going to have a whole neighborhood that's thrilled about this house being upgraded and a positive addition to the whole community.
The important thing to point out too is that builders build what consumers demand. So one of the things from a universal design perspective is that we need to educate consumers, us, to start demanding better design, to build the house of the future rather than building houses of the past. With that, I want to thank you all, and hopefully there's some paper on the tables that you may have written questions down that you want to ask. At this point, we'd like to throw it open to the whole the table here and answer any questions you may have.
About barrier-free showers. I have one of those small bathrooms like was in one of your slides. And I'd like to have a barrier-free, but how do you do that in a condo? How do you cordon off where the water is from the rest of the bathroom?
So in that case, there are materials that we can do, that we can use to basically recess the floor into the floor joists, and then we build up from there. So there's, yeah, it's very easy to do now. Although potentially might involve disturbing your neighbors below.
There's lots of products that are coming out now too. Gerry alluded to some of those, or Paul, excuse me, alluded to some of those. There's linear drains, which rather than having a drain in the middle of the floor now, there's linear drains so that you can actually stop water from going out the door.
Go from wall to wall.
Yeah, you can actually go around the whole corner. You can do anything you want, and then Paul built the slope into that so water drains that way. There's also, I've seen, flexible thresholds that are thresholds. So there's like a threshold on the shower that is more like a weather stripping thing, so that if you're on a chair, you can just roll over the threshold. But again, creativity is a thing. There's a lot of ways to make this soup out of all these ingredients. So
I'm a certified kitchen and bath designer and living in place designer as well, and I've been studying technology, smart homes, and also beginning to study how that is impacting universal design and aging in place. How much are you seeing that beginning to be implemented already, and what technology is going to be coming in the future that really aids this demographic?
Yeah, and I think the smart home, there's actually, and I can't tell you off the top of my head, there's actually some of the national builders right now that are already building smart homes that are incorporating the technology that we've got today. But the technology we've got today is going to be the rotary phone of tomorrow. Who knows? It's changing so fast right now that anything can happen. But there are a lot of products out there right now that are incorporating that. Having voice commands for opening and shutting doors, you know, for somebody that is quadriplegic, for example. Actually, in another example of a design competition, they actually have a mirror that's interactive. So you can come up, it knows, it asks whether you've taken your medications, whether, you know, what activity level you've had, what your weight is, anything like that. So again, imagination is the only limitation.
Yeah, for us, I think what we're seeing is that like touchless faucets are great. I'm playing with on my home different light switching that will move with you kind of through the home, which is pretty cool. Although I don't think that some of that stuff is quite there yet. They're still working out some of the kinks. I know my wife thinks I'm crazy with some of this stuff because it's not quite working quite right. Lighting is a big thing as well, and I notice it just for myself, like in the mornings, and really trying to play with what's called circadian light, or our circadian rhythm, right? So the light at dawn is different than the light at noon, which is different than the light at dusk, and playing with interior lighting that will adapt to that, which is pretty cool.
That's a really good point. That goes to Gerry's point too, is that as you get older, your lighting requirements change. So I mean, you know, here's a possibility of having each person's individual preference follow them through the house. In fact, in a previous life, I was in the tech industry, and one of the projects I had at Microsoft was helping put the network into Bill's house. So we were working with cutting edge stuff in the 90s at that point, and one of the things that they had was a button that guests could wear with their preferences, so the music would follow them through the house. The artwork that was on the walls, which was in the screen, would change. It was 20 years ago, so who knows now.
Hi, I'm Sherry Pirazzoli with the Hearing Loss Association of Washington, and thank you for today. This was an excellent program. I just wanted to bring up communication challenges for people as they age in place. And one of the things that we can address with smart technology, I use it in my home. It's very helpful. But one thing that I think that we can look at in terms of universal design is what kind of building materials are we using to incorporate good acoustics? Because when we look at a lot of the cleaning, easy to clean surfaces, we're talking about things that sound just bounces off the walls. And even in my home, as I'm walking through the house talking on my cell phone, people I'm talking to can tell what room I'm in because of the echo that they're hearing through the telephone. And so I would like to see more of communication and hearing access incorporated in terms of universal design. And so I'm just wondering if you might have any thoughts that you could share with us on that.
From an OT perspective, it's kind of it's clients. We look at what's called client-centered therapy or client-centered treatment, and so it's something that's not included in right now in universal design that I've seen. But if there was a need to have the sound reduction or absorption in the walls or the carpeting and things like that, so basically it makes a lot of sense. For a bathroom, it would be pretty difficult because you're wanting to kind of keep it waterproof, and so your walls, you know, a lot of tile is used in the ones with the recessed wheel-in showers and things like that. So I'm not really sure the acoustics, how that would work in a bathroom. But in terms of walking, we look for hard surfaces because it improves balance. So if you had, if we had padding underneath this carpeting right now, if someone was in a wheelchair, it would be extremely hard for them to self-propel their wheelchair. Walking is difficult. So next time you're in your home, what you should do is go to those rooms that have the padding under the carpeting and see how your balance is off with your feet together. You might notice that you are walking with a wider based gait to help with your balance in a home. So that's one of the things when I do adapting or modifying a home with someone that is now in a wheelchair using a walker, is we try to get the surfaces that are harder. But this carpeting that's in this room here, that would actually absorb the sound more so than a laminate flooring or something like that.
I think the important thing to note too is that, you know, universal design is for the greatest number of people for the greatest good. You're never going to have a house that is everything for everybody. But when you've got needs like that, just like I said, demand them. I mean, start asking for those things. Until we start asking for them, they're not going to come about. So we need to be smarter about that.
My name is Emerson Seekins, and I am the executive director of Northwest Access Fund, and we help primarily folks with disability. We help exclusively people with disabilities, including seniors, mostly low income, to help afford the technology they need, and that includes modifications to their home. And so I kind of wanted to bring up costs. Often these home modifications are maybe just one of the costs that they need to have because of their disability or age-related conditions. You've got medications, you've got durable medical equipment, you've got hearing aids. And so I'm just kind of wanting to know how folks are piecing together resources to get these projects accomplished.
I find that is the challenge because you're looking at all of these medical costs, but you're looking at, you know, thousands of dollars to modify your home. I'm not familiar with anything. Gerry, are you?
Yeah, there's grant funding that is out there, national grants, and then it kind of comes down to the state, county, city level. I work a lot up in Snohomish County, up north, and the minor home repair through homage, the program through Snohomish County Senior Services, they have a program where they get their, so they start out with grant money through the fiscal year that starts federal, and then it comes down to the state, the county, and then the city. And certain cities will have more funding. So I service a lot of seniors in senior mobile homes where they are on limited incomes, and we're looking at usually accessibility in and out of their home, and so they're doing a lot of ramps to be able to access. So a lot of the funding goes for ramp use, as well as weatherproofing their roofs where they have leaks and things like that. And so usually the people that are having, they're trying to prevent mold, those are on the higher priority list, and as the fiscal year goes, so does the funding until the next fiscal year. And so sometimes they'll look, you have to be qualified for, I think it's 55 and older, depending upon your financial status, your income level. So sometimes, for example, all of the labor will be covered for a ramp to be built if they can possibly cover some of the costs of the wood, the plywood, and the 2x4s and things like that. So I work with the head of the program's name is Julie Rose up there, and so I just kind of refer my patients to them, and then they kind of do kind of find out their financial access.
So I'm Denise Klein, and I'm the executive director of an 80-member organization called Wider Horizons. So it's 80 of us who are attempting to have a great life while staying more or less where we started. So apartments, condos, homes. But after 3 years of doing this work, one of the things that I see that's been missing is the sort of broader view. I mean, we talked about the blind man and the elephant. So there's a bigger view that says, what I have to do is look at each individual, including their financial standing capability, whether they're an apartment dweller, in which case, as you know, there's a slightly more limited set of things that you can do to age in place. And there's going to be a different solution for each person depending on how all those variables come together. So I think we're going to need specialists who maybe start with a training in OT or social work, but who can broaden out to do some consulting with individuals and get to know the person a little bit and figure out how you can, I would say, optimize. I think it's optimize is what we're going to be looking for, not completely redo. And I'm very interested in how it seems to me, I don't have the data on this, but I think far fewer older people from 75 up are in wheelchairs than are in some other situation with respect to mobility. Anything from using no appliance to using a walker. And so each case is going to demand a lot. And there's some really simple things that wouldn't cost much, but nobody seems to be addressing them, that I personally would benefit from, so I'm going to mention them in case anybody can give me a referral. Making it possible for all electrical connections to not be anywhere near the floor, and to be easy to plug things into, maybe even magnetically. I mean, you know, my iPhone has a little magnetic thing that charges it. Why can't we have those instead of plugs? All plugs are difficult. Plugs on the floor are almost impossible as you get older. Extension cords, so I have a number of power cords, which are actually better than extension cords because they tend to be, you know, very thick, and you can get them in varying, the cord can be of varying lengths. So you can already go to Amazon and get, so you could have power cords everywhere, which is kind of the option that I'm working on.
You mean like a power strip?
A power strip, yes.
Okay.
Power strip, thick cord, plugs into something. So you only have one plug that gives you access to a bunch of plugs, but even those plugs are not always easy to plug things into. You could do, it would be a real simple thing to invent. I'm just not, I don't have that capability.
Yeah, you know, I think it's important to address too from a design perspective. This is again one of the things in universal design is having outlets higher up off the floor and the switches lower down. But people ask, you know, why is it that way? How were the standards created? Well, there are no standards, you know. Interestingly, I found that the height of an outlet on a wall got to be that height because it's the height of a framing hammer. So when the builder's in there, they can take their hammer and make a mark. So there's your standard. The other one is, if you're familiar with your computer, the keyboard is called a QWERTY because of the way the keys are laid out. That keyboard exists that way rather than being alphabetical because it kept the hammers on the typewriter from running into each other. So that's how that standard developed. So the point is there are no standards. You know, we need to rethink how we do everything. You know, just because that's the way we've always done it is not the best way to do it.
Hi, my name's Merlin Rainwater. I'm a retired home care nurse, and my experience with the need for universal design is through working with clients and also taking care of my mother-in-law and then being in a wheelchair myself for a short period of time. And I live in an older home on the east slope of Capitol Hill, very steep hillside. And I've noticed that over the last couple years, I think there's been 7 or 8 $1 to $2.5 million new homes built within a couple blocks of me. And it seems that all of these homes are designed with gratuitous, unnecessary steps into the entrances, and also walkways that have sections of gravel interrupting the panels. And there's even a couple of houses that were designed with elevator shafts, which the elevators were not installed, but the elevator shafts end at the top of stairs in the garages. So what I'm seeing is just these designers are completely oblivious to any concept of universal design and are designing things that I don't think there's a cost factor there. It's just a style factor, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Fortunately, AIA, for example, is really getting on the bandwagon as far as universal design and doing a lot of awards. I also notice every month in the trade publications, Kitchen and Bath Design News features universal design projects. So from where it is today to where it was when I started doing this 14 years ago is night and day. I mean, nobody even knew what you were talking about 14 years ago. And I think it's going to change even more rapidly over the next couple of years. So it is education. And again, that's what we say. Part of it, you can blame the designer, but in most cases, the designer does what the homeowner wants done. So we really need to educate people into asking more intelligently.
And one thing I'd like to add is there's a stigma with aging that a lot of people are in denial and don't want to really consider. I don't need, say for example, these people on Capitol Hill you're talking about, or do you know their ages? Do you know your neighbors? Are they 65 or older?
Okay, these houses were all built on spec, and it's young working, tech families that have moved in, people mostly with kids. But they're not thinking about getting old, obviously.
Right. So if you're thinking about universal design like the gentleman here described, kind of making the home visitable or usable for all individuals, it's education, and mostly to the individuals and the builders that are doing this. If they have children, kind of approach and say, hey, would you like to have your kitchen accessible for your entire family? If the homeowner, or if the builders aren't doing that with a spec home, then you're just not going to see it. But with the population, I have a good friend with some parents that moved up here, and the last thing they want to hear about is any age-related illnesses or anything like that. So part of it is denying we're all going to pass on at some point. We all age differently, and so kind of understanding and recognizing that those changes are going to happen. And I would have to say probably 80% of the folks I see don't do anything until it's absolutely necessary.
From a marketing perspective, that's really tough too. One of the things that I've found is that, we're all invincible. We're going to be climbing mountains till we're 90. But for a lot of us, we're experiencing going through these things with our parents. And I think what I've done is I've always tried to market the concept of doing these things in case mom and dad need to move in, or for mom and dad, or something like that. And what I've found is that as the people go through and start doing these things for mom and dad, they start thinking, that just kind of makes sense. Maybe I ought to do that too. But if you try to approach it from the fact that you need this, it's like, no, I don't need that.
I wanted to talk to your point about having people that are on fixed incomes, and as you know, anything when you're 65 and older that you take out of your savings account, you're generally not going to put back in. And there's all these wonderful designs to place in the home, but again, people on fixed incomes aren't able to afford them. One of the things that I recommend frequently to some of my clients is actually having an occupational therapist come into their existing house and seeing the individual and their specific needs, whether they're stronger on the right side or weaker on the left side, and what can they do to help make their home as safe as possible. And sometimes people live in apartments and it's not lucrative to install grab bars, so they'll even do things like, this is your wheelchair does not fit into your bathroom and you have a wheelchair for a short period of time, so this is the safest way to navigate from your door to the toilet. I want you to put one hand here on this sink that is, enough to support your weight, one hand here on this wall, and to help them, again, safely navigate in their current and more safely navigate in their current environment without causing any increased expense. And even things like, let's get rid of all these extension cords, which are a trip hazard. Let's take everything off the top shelf and put it in the bottom shelf. And again, looking at the one individual and their specific house and doing everything they can to keep that person as safe as possible so they're able to age in place successfully for as long as possible.
Or I'll kind of go through, here's the most cost-efficient way to make your environment more independent and accessible, and kind of take it from there. So if they do have income that they want to spend, we kind of look and take it from there, because there are some simplistic things that you can do. Instead of installing grab bars on the walls and things like that, you could get rails at the local Rite Aid or Walgreens that I could come out and install within 10 minutes that's $40 or $23 on Amazon. And to make it a lot safer going from sitting to standing, as opposed to doing some major remodel.
And if you look at our aging population, the statistic is now that by 2030, the population over 50 will be larger than the population under 7 for the first time in history. So numbers-wise, and we're living longer, numbers-wise, we can't keep doing the same thing that we've done. So keeping people in their houses longer is going to be an economic necessity. And we need to start driving that in terms of policy as well.
I have two questions. The first one is, you've talked a lot about sort of adjustments that can be made on like a single family home, maybe, or a condo. I'm wondering kind of what you're seeing in the commercial building of people that are building large apartment buildings, what they're doing to kind of adjust to universal design. And then my second question is, I don't know if maybe I want to answer that one first, and then I'll ask my second one.
I can tell you one thing. Number one, in apartment buildings, they're driven by ADA. So there's a certain percentage of the housing that has to be in accessibility. But there's nothing that says they have to rent those to people that need them. Most people love getting those because they're bigger. They feel different. It's kind of the same concept as universal design. It just feels bigger. There was another point I was going to make to that too, but you have to wheel me out of here. I'll think of it.
So I live in an apartment building that's 4 years old and has quite a lot of units in it in central Seattle. And it's very interesting the things that were and were not done in the building of the building. I think because of security, there's no automatic door opening, and they're heavy exterior doors. And I'm guessing it might have been a security issue because there's a lot of potential in that neighborhood for people breaking in or getting in to the building. But one of the odd things they did was they made the call box that's located on the exterior of the building accessible for someone in a wheelchair, which means that, and there is a ramp, so it is a visitable apartment building, but it means that it's almost unusable for anybody who's not in a wheelchair, because you gotta go down like this, and people don't know it either. So they just stand here and talk into it, and nobody can hear. So the hallways are wide. I believe the bathrooms could accommodate a wheelchair. The carpeting is pretty low. I mean, I think it's very usable for somebody in a wheelchair, and the apartments themselves have a lot of area that's not carpeted. So they've done some things really well, and then a few things that, you know, in the building itself, you can get in, it's an elevator building. So I've started to look at it as, instead of an extremely expensive apartment, a low-cost long-term care facility.
My second question is, like, I love the roll-in shower. Like, I think it'd be nice to have that, just like for me. But my 11-month-old,
European shower, please.
yeah, European shower, exactly. But my like 11-month-old daughter is terrified of the shower, and so she like couldn't take a bath in one of those. So I'm wondering, how do we kind of meet both of those needs at the same time?
Yeah, so we've actually had clients in that same situation, and they actually just got like a little bucket tub that they put in the shower, and they had the handheld. They would fill up the bucket, and then the child would bathe in what essentially was a bathtub.
I'm Carly Hokie. I'm an interior designer. But one thing that's coming up that's also a new movement that I think would help this universal design move along a lot too, and grassroots movement, is multi-generational housing. A lot of families thinking of saving cost and moving in together. So parents are living with their children and their grandchildren. And in such a scenario, you're going to have to start solving those problems and thinking of how it can be usable for everyone, not just a certain age group or a certain specific person, but to make a home that is truly inclusive and truly for all.
I'm Celia Topasquale. I'm a native resident, and I'm sorry I arrived late, so I don't know if you gave the suggestion. My family's looking at remodeling the house my father built, and to accommodate aging in place for my cousin, and anyway, big remodel. Is there a timeline or guidebook that I can refer to kind of start thinking of these things and organize my thoughts around where to start?
You had mentioned timeline. Was there something specific in relation to timeline?
I guess in terms of prioritizing costs, or we're thinking of putting a structure in the backyard. We have a large yard, so trying to understand the impact. Okay, plumbing is expensive to put out. So how to prioritize what should be done, what's another way to do something.
Okay. I don't know if you were here, but this remodel reality checklist might be a good place for you to start as well. So if you don't have one on your table, you can have this one.
Hand it out, so I've missed these.
Okay, you can have this copy.
Thank you.
Hi, I love the idea of turning accessibility features into real assets for selling your home. And Tom, could you tell us a little bit about the change that just occurred with the multiple listing service that makes it easier to find accessible homes?
Actually, this just became reality last Thursday, and it's something that, like I said, I've been battling this for 14 years, but 2 years ago, Irene introduced me to Barry Long, who's was a motivational speaker, just became a realtor with Sotheby's, and we've worked together with the Northwest Multiple Listing Service to change the accessibility, make accessibility searchable on home listings now. It took us largely 2 years to do, because one of the things that we wanted to do was to make it a standard. So we worked with the Real Estate Standards Organization, which all the multiple listings across the country use as a taxonomy. So we're hoping that this will be replicable to other multiple listings across the country. And one of the nice things too is that we have an awards banquet just coming up for Northwest Access Fund, and they awarded Northwest Multiples Listing Service as an industry that's adapting to that environment. So I think it's a real coup. And we are also, between Barry and I, are going to create, we have a 3-hour clock hour class for realtors to educate them on the market opportunity and the needs for accessibility. So we're hoping to, one brick at a time, start addressing that.
I actually had a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Tom, earlier you were talking about an interactive mirror, and it made me think of a film that came out a while back called The Truman Show, where he thought he was looking in a mirror, but actually he was on live TV. So in relation to that, do you, with the smart homes and all these things sort of taking over people's lives, is there any pushback from people thinking that it's out of my control, the home is now it's its own thing, or is that worth it, giving up that freedom to be able to live fully?
I noticed in the news today they were just talking about this Boeing jet that crashed because the warning is giving the autopilot signature that it's stalling when it's really not. And the pilot on a plane always has control over the computer of changing it. So all they have to do is recognize that. But it's interesting from a technology standpoint. I know Intel, for example, has a whole division that's just dedicated to smart homes. One of the things that they have is sensors embedded in the flooring for your parents, for example, to see how often they get up and walk around, whether they're moving or not, whether they've taken their medications or not. So I mean, it's all in how you utilize this stuff, I think, is what's important. It's not the Truman Show, and it is not HAL 9000. It's using technology to benefit us.
If I'm looking for a occupational therapist or a builder or realtor that specializes in these areas, is there a way that you can suggest narrowing down a simple Google search? Are there professional associations to look to or lists that sort of would help in that? Thank you.
I believe this is the National Builders Association. So there's the Masters Builders Association. And I'm forgetting another one that has all the aging certifications.
That's the natural, the kitchen and bath thing. Is that the one you're thinking of?
One more time. Not the kitchen and bath. It was the national NHBH. Is it?
Well, yeah, that's the
one. That's the one. The national.
But there's the other one that has the clip.
NKBA too. Mm-hmm. I don't. Those are the organizations. But
was that clear?
I think the certifications are important. That's one of the things with Master Builders Association. I know that they have the certified aging in place specialists, which you have to go through a series of 3 all-day classes to really understand what the needs are, and then there's a lot of continuing education obviously after that. But people that have taken the effort to do certification, in a lot of cases, are interested in doing something differently. So look at that. And in each of I know the Physical Therapy Association and the Occupational Therapy Association of Washington also have resource names. And if you've got questions about realtors, there's not very many of us, so you can give me a call anytime. We do have a site that's set up called ableenvironments.com, and the website's just going into place on that. But we are hoping through our training of realtors around the country, that we can start having realtors that are also certified in this area. But right now, there's nothing.
The thing that I find with occupational therapy as well as physical therapy, usually PT will defer to the OT to come out to do the home safety evaluation. But most OTs are not in private practice. I'm one of maybe 2 that I know about in Puget Sound that go out, will go to the home, not billing Medicare without a doctor's prescription for OT, and I'm on several senior INA. And then with what Paul and Olga had to say was the NAHB has the CAPS program. So usually if I get a referral to an area that I don't service, if it's Eastern Washington, I'll recommend go on the CAPS and certified aging in place specialist, and you could you can specify builder, architect, interior designer, occupational therapy, and then that will then list who is certified in that zip code or whatever.